as a singer, some people have asked me, well, do I like the research best, or do I like the recording process, or whatever? And now I've come to feel that the performance side is like, the whole thing is like creating a meal for friends. That you go out shopping for the ingredients, you go to your kitchen, you try this recipe and that, which is like the songs, and then you invite everybody over for dinner and you kind of sit them down. Until one actually shares that meal with someone, it feels like you haven't completed the whole process.
my dawn are there and keep us safe and lead us from all harm. So come, love, let us dance all night until the birds they waken at the dawn. So come, love, let us sing all night and join our loves with slumber with a song. So come, love, let us dance all night until the birds they waken at the dawn. So come, love, let us sing all night and join our loves with slumber with a song. So come, love, let us dance all night until the birds they waken at the dawn. So come, love, let us sing all night and join our loves with slumber with a song. La 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 la
The music has been called New Age, it's been called folk and Celtic and world music and so on.
Certainly her first record was basically a traditional, largely Irish, acoustic, simple recording.
Come by the hills to the land where fancy is free.
There was a book that came out called How to Make and Sell Your Own Recording. There's several rules in the book. One of it is know who your fans are. So Loreena would busk, she would pause, and people say, "That's lovely. Do you have a record?" She said, "If you would sign this piece of paper and give me your name and your address, when I have a record, I'll be in touch."
And in 1985, I borrowed from my family the money that they had earmarked for me to undertake my veterinarian studies. And I made my first recording in 1 week, and it was done in a wonderful studio in a barn in southern Ontario. So I ran off about 30 cassettes, and I gave some to family and friends.
Then she said, "Okay, how do I get this out?" So she would go to stores. She had a little display built and designed that would hold 20 cassettes. Fits right next to a cash register. And she would go to bookshops and crystal shops and wherever. And 2 or 3 days later, they'd gone. We need more. And the record went gold. Then she made another record, and it went gold. Now, as soon as that happens, in those days, major record companies go, money.
So by the time 1991 came along, that's when I interfaced with the major record company.
She was courted by most of the majors who sat and looked and said, oh my God, she's selling, she's almost sold 70,000 records. We have to get a hold of this.
One record company was very interested, advanced her some money to make some demo records for them. They got them, they listened, and they said, well, you should change this, you should change that, fix that. She said, here's your money back.
I developed the financial capacity to produce my own recordings up until 91. So that allowed me to interface with a major label on a different kind of footing. They didn't have to put in the investment, they didn't have to put in the risk. I did that and could retain the creative control.
It got around within the industry that she basically auditioned the labels. When she made the deal with Warner, it was known throughout the business as the Loreena McKennitt deal. They cursed the fact that they made such a deal with her because anybody who came in to make a deal wanted the Loreena McKennitt deal. Loreena was the trailblazer and will be recognized not just in Canada but worldwide.
I can make whatever music I want, and I can I finance my own tours, so if I want to bring 9 musicians on the road, I don't have to negotiate with a manager or a record company. You just say, okay, I'm going to do it.
She is very, very much involved in controlling every aspect of her business life. In the early days, I shared an office with the guy who booked the talent on a show done by a guy called Dave Osborne. It was a sort of a comedy, wacky kind of show. The idea was that she'd be on stage and she'd play the harp and she'd fall off the stage and that would be that. She also managed to pull her back out. I think she's had recurrent back problems ever since. It was a disaster. And I'm not sure she's forgiven me. Loreena hates being tagged as a, quote, new age artist.
I personally feel that there are so many aspects of my music that are so far from New Age.
I remember her having a fight with the publisher of Billboard at the time, Timothy White. She was still on the New Age chart at that particular time. In fact, she was #1 on the New Age chart.
And one day, Loreena phoned him up and said, basically,
I want off this chart. I don't care if I'm #1.
And Timothy White broke into laughter, and next week she was listed as world music.
Timothy phoned me, he says, I've never met somebody that, wanted off a chart before. This is not a porcelain princess.
I mean, what's interesting about this is people perceive me sometimes incompletely as a result of some of the subject matter that I'm pursuing and I'm interested in. We have people who share with us their perception that I spend my days out in the field with my harp and my flowing roses. So, I mean, I do enjoy going out to the field with my dogs and walking them and enjoying the countryside for sure. But my day is going to the office and I'm sitting at my desk and I'm doing all administrative things.
She once said, well, I think 15% of my life is music and 85% is business. That's the way she works. If it works for her, God bless her.
It is a challenge balancing the artistic with the management. When I'm on the road, I'm sort of functioning as an executive producer. So you two have line checked, yes? You've line checked?
I have checked.
You haven't?
Yes, I have.
Oh, yeah. And you...
Touring is, nobody in their right mind would do it.
It is a very, very intense environment. In my particular situation, we are touring with sometimes over 30 people. It's like moving a little hamlet around every day and mounting a show and dismounting it every single day. And as an executive producer, I'm ensuring that all manner of timeline, budgetary, contractual things have been covered off. So it means living in a different side of your brain. Meanwhile, back in Creative Land, how are we doing?
I think she does everything but, you know, drive the bus. I wouldn't be surprised if she does that on some tours as well, too.
I have to now go find walkie-talkies. It's just a lot of grunt work. There are times where I might be doing some exercise of business almost 5 or 10 minutes right up to show time. The same place you are. You've reached hopefully that point of preparation that you feel comfortable, the lyrics, the arrangement, the infrastructure, and here you are finally at the precipice of being able to share that with the public. The trepidation, of course, comes in if, you know, something doesn't unfold quite as it should. And every once and again that happens. I've also found myself in a funny kind of way becoming more shy. It's a kind of funny quality or capacity when, you know, what you do is actually standing in front of so many people. And I don't feel I'm an extrovert by nature, and I'm sure people find that very odd to say, well, why did you choose this career path? And I would say, well, I'm a reluctant public person. And as the front person of this band, they're so accomplished at what they do that I feel quite comfortable opening up the performance environment. But they all do perform at an elite level. They also have a real eclectic curiosity about instruments and music as well. They span rock and roll, world music, and jazz, and classical. So they bring all those sensibilities with them as well.
A lot of the musicians have worked with Loreena for many, many years.
Brian and I go back quite a long ways. I think we started working together in 1988.
After 20 years, I mean, I do have a very good idea of what it is she wants in terms of the sound and the stage sound. It's kind of like a second set of ears for her, so that we can get stuff, you know, really in the ballpark right away, sound-wise and music-wise.
It's like, what is it, D, F? Yeah. So after they do that in the middle of the song, that next verse is kind of like a breakdown thing, so you don't play in that verse. It's just like drums and bass and pad, sort of.
When we gather people back, it's not always possible to duplicate the exact same team of people. So when we refresh a tour, there's time that I need to spend with some individual musicians and ensure that they are looked after. You know, everybody else is so up to speed and they've got a steep learning curve.
Always a bit awkward until you get familiar and get to know your fellow musicians.
That part that goes with, you do the chords with that.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, whereas
But I'm just trying to give the kind of rhythm, the groove part of it. Let's just do that bit again.
That much?
Yeah. But just that last.
Just that part. 3, 4.
I had already kind of studied the tunes, but you have to play with the band to make it sound good. It's not about the notes.
So that's the motion that we're trying to get.
Yeah.
She's just worked and worked and worked with these people, and she knows exactly what they're capable of. They know what she's capable of. It's almost like just a look across the stage is enough to communicate, let's go this direction with this song. And they go as a unit.
It is difficult because you have so many people and everyone is listening in a different way.
If you look closely, you will notice that there's some musicians have monitor speakers, the majority of them have tiny earphones.
They are monitors that are tuned in such a way they hear their instrument at a level that they need to hear in order to play with everybody else.
What you hear back from the house is kind of a lot of noise. It's because the speaker's not pointing at you, it's bouncing off all the walls and it comes back on you, and you can sometimes not hear yourself at all.
You got to hear the right balance to be in a pocket.
The better that gets, the better
everything is, the
happen.
easier is to achieve a pocket, because it's about listening. If you try not to listen to somebody, you will never be in the pocket.
Obviously, the more musicians you have, the harder that is sometimes.
it's not just hearing, it's about balance and it's about musicality as well, so that they have something that inspires them to play.
There's a lot of trust involved between the artist and me, because I can, like I said before, I can really screw them up. If I turn things on or off at the wrong time, you know, it can really be distracting. Here it's you're a bit more like the audio waiter, you know. I'm just serving it up what they want. When you're mixing front of house, it's a bit more artistic.
There's really a lot going on. There's an awful lot of challenges to mix this. There's 11 really fabulous musicians on stage. The musicianship is startling. And they all play multiple instruments. So the audio part of it is really quite complicated. And so the biggest challenge really for me is to manage those and keep everybody in the mix and keep it sounding like music. And if things go really well, perhaps even keep it sounding like the record.
The actual room, the sound of the room, etc., can really affect the way the musicians are playing.
Every place is different, you know, different wall finishings, different seats, different back wall dressings. The biggest thing is just making all of the rooms sound the same. You know, trying to get the sound system so that it's the same every day for the engineer to mix on. And providing the audiences with the same sound, whether or not you're in the front seat or the back seat of the hall.
This is a complete touring circus, and we walk into an empty room every day and we create what they see. And after the show, we pack it up, take it away, and go somewhere else and do it all over again.
Typical show day is we're getting off a bus at a venue and figure out how we're going to put the show on their stage, open the trucks and bring the stuff in, hang a lot of it from the roof, place staging underneath it, hang a sound system.
Miles and miles of cable, loads of lights, loads of sound, bits of cloth, bits of string.
At a certain point in the day, it's a complete construction site. We're hanging chains from the roof and lifting tons of stuff over people's heads. There's a million heavy cases moving about.
Then things start simmering down into kind of more fine-tuned detail things, line checking, checking light positions, etc.
Everybody gets their head down and they get on with it, because ultimately at 8 o'clock tomorrow evening the house lights go out, Loreena walks out on the stage and everything works.
Then the show goes down and the loadout starts. It might not finish till 2 in the morning. The crew will get on their bus, crawling into their bunks for 5 hours maybe. They get up, they pull up to the next venue at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it starts all over again the next day.
We've been to lots of famous cities and haven't seen any of them.
Hotels and airports of the world.
Buses and venues.
It's an extreme circumstance to work this closely, this intimately, this intensely. I mean, it'd be different, let's say, even if we all worked intensely 9 till 5 days a week, but we've been living together for about 3.5 months.
So you got to really pick the right people. If you say there's 8 people on a bus, well, you got one wrong person. It doesn't take too much to disturb 7 others, right?
The comfort of the 2 of us is a function of the people you share it with, really. I mean...
And a function of your exhaustion.
Yeah. You're tired enough, you'll sleep.
It's horizontal, you know.
There become aspects of touring that need to be dealt with in terms of survival. Sometimes I feel touring is like an extreme sport. I treat it as an athletic experience first and a creative one second.
You get a certain exhaustion level kind of hits you, and then when you have free time, even if you're awake, not really sleeping, it's like your concentration level is not great. You know, so it's hard to be really creative.
Well, and the reality is too, you're spending, you know, expending a lot of your creative energy. I mean, on the show. I mean, as you should be. So that's where that's going.
You come off after it, and that part of my brain kind of has given it all out, and if somebody then wants to have a big chat with me, I'm trying to string words together. I'm having difficulty, which normally I don't have.
I think one of my greatest worries is my ability to remember all the lyrics.
What? And you're going to find the dark night of what? Ended? Okay. Sorry. No. All right, well, clearly we'll come back to that one. I might be practicing that on my own tonight.
I think it's the, being people away from their families, especially young children, it's difficult. And, just also maintaining your relationships. You're kind of off with this sort of extended family. Your partners always have to be incredibly understanding and know that's part of what you do.
I think my wife and I figured out we hadn't actually had an anniversary together in 10 years. Because that date just happens to fall in the middle of the touring season every year, and I'm not there, so there you go. The only way we can be together is if she's coming to me. There's lots of that kind of thing for people, which is tough.
I don't have a family at home. I don't have any children, so the ties to home are not that strong. I mean, and I've been on the road for a number of years, so home's kind of where you are. I love flying. That's the one thing that I'd miss when I'm out on the road.
So how do people keep in touch with home? I mean, how does video chats?
Telephones. You've probably heard of telephones.
Right,
It's an older technology, but...
For those of us who work on the road, I mean, we're in a musical kind of thing, that ability to still... And when I think of yourself, Tal, and seeing you on talking with your kids, and there they are on the screen.
Today they went first time to first grade.
Wow.
Today was their first, and I managed to talk to them in the morning before they go.
Yeah.
And they were having breakfast, and my wife put the laptop on the table, and I had breakfast with them. So they were talking to me and making faces and getting dressed and everything. So it really helps a lot, because that's the one thing I miss is the kids when you go on the road.
So it's still difficult for women who have families to actually go out on the road. Well, I have loads of dogs, so they're my family, but luckily they like the woman who looks after them as much as they like me. Little beggars. Anyway, but if they were children, I couldn't leave them. So there's still, even now, a difference between men and women.
You get to know people, and you get to know how they think and how they work and how to help them and how to avoid them. There can be camaraderie, but this is particularly intense. So yes, we're all a bit sad. We're all emotionally a bit fragile, I can tell, and But I know at the same time people are very keen to get home to their families and to their beds and their dogs and their other lives. Okay, so let's do the Highwayman next.
Was a torrent of darkness among the ghastly trees. The moon was a ghostly galleon tossed upon the cloudy seas. The road was a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor. A highwayman came riding, riding, riding. A highwayman came riding up to the old inn door. He had a French-cocked hat on his forehead, a bunch of lace at his chin, a cord of claret velvet, and breeches of brown doe skin. They fitted with never a wrinkle, his boots were up to the thigh, and he rode with a jewel twinkle, his pistol buds a twinkle, his rapier hilt a twinkle unto the jeweled sky. Over the coppers he clattered and clashed in the darkened yard, and he tapped with his whip on the shutters, but all was locked and barred. He whistled a tune to the window, and who should be waiting there but the landlord's black-eyed daughter, the landlord's red-lipped daughter, plaiting a long red love note into her long black hair. One kiss, my bonny sweetheart, I'm after a prize tonight, and I shall be back with the yellow gold before the morning light. Yet if they press me sharply and hurry me through the day, then look for me by the moonlight, watch for me by the moonlight. I'll come to thee by the moonlight, though hell should bar the way. He rose upright in his stirrups, he scarce could reach her hand. She'd loosened her hair in the casement, his face was like a brand. As a black cascade of perfume came tumbling over his breast, and he kissed its waves in the moonlight, oh sweet waves in the moonlight, tugged at his friend in the moonlight, and galloped away to the west. He did not come at the dawning, he did not come at noon, and out of the tawny sunset, before the rise of the moon, when the road was a gypsy's ribbon, looping the purple moor, King George's men came marching, marching, marching. King George's men came marching up to the olden door. They said no word to the landlord, they drank his ale instead, and they bound and gagged his daughter to the foot of a narrow bed. Two of them knelt to the casement with the muskets at the side. There was death at every window, hell at one dark window, for Bess could see through the casement the road that he would ride. They tied her up to attention with many a sniggering jest, and they bound a musket beside her with a bar beneath the breast. Now keep good watch, and they kissed her. She heard the dead man say, look for me by the moonlight, watch for me by the moonlight. I'll come to thee by the moonlight, through hell should bar the way. She twisted her hands behind her, but all the knots held good. She writhed her hands till her fingers were wet with sweat and blood. They stretched and strained in the darkness, and the hours crawled back years, to know on the stroke of midnight, called on the stroke of midnight. The tip of one finger touched it, the trigger at least was hers. Horses' hooves ring clear, toddle-lot, toddle-lot in the distance, were they deaf they did not hear. Down the ribbon of moonlight, over the brow of the hill, the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. The redcoats looked to the brining, she stood up straight and still. Toddle-lot in the frosty silence, toddle-lot in the echoing night. Nearer came and nearer, her face was like a light. Her eyes grew wide for a moment, she drew one last deep breath. Then a finger moved in the moonlight, the musket shattered the moonlight, shattered her breast in the moonlight, and warmed him with the death. He turned his spur to the west, he did not know she stood, bound with the head of a musket, drenched with the brown red blood. Not till the dawn he heard it, his face grey to hear. How best that landlord's daughter, the landlord's red-lipped daughter, had watched for the love in the moonlight, and died in the darkness there. And back he spurred like a madman, shrieking across to the sky, with the white road smoking behind him, and his rapier brandished high. Blood red with the spurs of the golden moon, when red was his velvet coat, and they shot him down on the highway, down like a dog on the highway. And he lay in his blood on the highway, with a bunch of lace in his throat. And still on a winter's night, they say, when the wind is in the trees, when the moon is a ghostly galleon tossed upon the cloudy seas, when the road is a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor, a highwayman comes riding, riding, riding. A highwayman comes riding up to the old inn door.
So her sort of philosophy on the whole process of touring is that it has to be enjoyable. The way to make that happen is to make sure that all the bases are covered, to make sure that everybody sleeps as much as they should, to make sure that everybody eats properly, hotel people in the best possible fashion. The buses that we use are top quality buses. Everything is done to the best possible standard to get the best out of everybody.
I know a lot of musicians in a lot of different bands. I don't know any who are treated as well as Loreena's crew, which is why her key players have been with her for years.
And you're part of that wonderful team. One of my objectives is to preserve the integrity of your well-being. I very, very seldom hear them complain. They're very stoical. They get on with their jobs, and it's really quite amazing. One of my biggest worries is just to do with injuries.
She carries, as part of the crew, a masseuse. Everyone thinks, well, that's a bit... Well, yeah, but you're a roadie and you're carrying heavy crap around all day.
I often treat people perched on cases and
you pull muscles and somebody there can sort that.
Loreena's focus in working with massage therapy on tour is working everybody from the band to the bus.
She's also trained in first aid. I remember when we were performing in Europe a few years ago, one of the audience members who was expecting a baby went into labor in the lobby, and Christine was out in the lobby assisting in that situation.
I'll put a little heat on that later.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
People are away from home, and you can be away from those special little touches that just say, you know, we're thinking of you, you're special.
Happy birthday, Bert.
Grant and Dara are celebrating their 12th anniversary tonight for the first time together.
She treats people good. No question.
There are other ingredients that I think that keep us, keep myself anyway, somewhat healthy and happy. A large part of that is when we are in our work environment. I'm surrounded by wonderful, wonderful people. They're not only exceptional at what they do, they're lovely people to spend time with. They can be quite funny.
It's like with everybody, it's this all-knowing laugh. And it's kind of like what's not being said, we all know what we're getting ourselves into.
And we have lots of fun, particularly in sound check. So every once and again, when there's a pause in the sound check for some other reason or not, just to fill in time, I'll just start heading into Edelweiss. Dave, the monitor engineer, has a fabulous voice, an incredible sense of humor, and really excels in Broadway show songs. The more unpredictable, the better it is, because if it becomes too ritualized, then it loses its fun. And sometimes there are little tricks that go on stage, and they're trying to, we're trying to make each other laugh, perhaps, at some points.
Ah, fantastic. All right.
So I'm always curious when I turn around from time to time. It's like I don't know what I'm going to encounter in the back row.
I think Loreena's public image, the way that people sort of see her, is possibly rather austere, a little studious, certainly very serious. The reality is that she has a good sense of humor, especially about herself.
She's very, very funny.
I have to be careful, of course, if I'm in the middle of singing something.
Music itself, there's a lot of serious music that you're doing. So and it's funny sometimes, like yesterday at soundcheck, all of a sudden we're like, you just finished The Lady of Shalott, and then we're on some big joke about something. But it is kind of a release, I think, that comes from playing those songs. Yeah.
Mute this crowd.
So one of the challenges, especially when you're mature adults with families at home and other professions and so on, is how do you find time for yourself?
She appreciates that everybody, including herself, you need time to recharge the batteries.
The longer the tour is, I'm aware that I need to bank in certain kinds of time for myself. And because my day is very demanding, it's like a marathon that goes, or a triathlon that goes on for 2 months. You pace yourself, you learn to analyze your mental state, that when you want to stop, you can't stop. You find a way of continue to going, and you continue to go, hopefully with the grace and dignity and not being totally out of sorts. When I'm singing, I very much notice a difference the days that I don't run versus the days that I run. That singing is a very physical exercise, and the breathing that goes with that. And I like to feel that from a muscle standpoint, I have trained my body like an athlete trains their body.
Obviously, the downtime's really important, because you're on a lot of the time, whether it's the performance itself or a sound check.
And I can see the crew taking moments on the tour bus, just going to the back lounge. They might just watch television on their own, might just watch television with other people. They might just crawl into their bunk and read for a bit. It's very, very difficult to get private time.
Well, some people have hobbies, some people play music. Some of them crew play music. Keith, for instance, goes gliding in every opportunity. He's hiring a glider and he's gone. The stage manager trades stocks. There isn't a lot of time. I mean, but if you make use of it, there's enough there.
Watching her about a year ago in Massey Hall, the thing I got out of it was how much joy the musicians were having on stage.
Now it's so comfortable, and when people were really playing last night, the first night of the show, and it's starting to feel good.
Like everybody's locked and playing, it's like the same kind of thought and the same feel and the same groove.
When I was learning to play the piano as a child, I was part of a children's choir. And one of the great things about training in a children's choir or a choir is that you learn the principle that you are not always a focal point. Part of the objective is to belong to a group, and that's what ensemble playing is. You know who's leading with something, and when you play a supporting role, and then when you play together. And all of that psychology informs of whether you're playing in the pocket.
I mean, it seems like it's just improbable, it would never happen, but it does. And when it does, it's a beautiful thing.
It's an absolutely exquisite moment to achieve, and I think the public often feels it. Most of the time I feel the audience, myself, we've all become one. Not only have the musicians myself become a unit, we've all become one. It feels overpowering. A few occasions where I find myself just fighting back tears, just not because I'm sad or anything, it's just because it's just so overwhelming, the human interaction of it.
To many of her fans, the chance to meet Loreena and to speak with her means as much as seeing her perform or listening to her music. And Loreena, unlike many artists, is very prepared to give that back.
I'm fascinated by people, by meeting, not just in a performance context, but actually meeting in a more intimate context of like an in-store or after the concert. It just sort of consummates that relationship.
Thank you very much for coming, and thank you.
I'm humbled by the fact that there are as many people who have chosen on any particular night to spend money, to take time out of their busy lives to come and hear us perform, and I'm grateful for that.
I don't know what to say.
Don't worry.
I've been listening to you forever.
And Loreena is incredibly graceful and smart and charming with these people. She disarms them and they go away saying, I made a friend.
We get a lot of correspondence from the public as to how they've discovered my music or how they've used it in their life.
From Argentina and from Turkey and from wherever. And it's not just, are you going to come and play in Ankara on your next tour? It's, you touched me.
Mrs. McKennitt, you got fans in Lebanon.
I know.
In the Middle East.
I know.
We love you so much. Your music touches us. Thank you.
Loreena's music has touched a lot of people, and they always remember what they were doing when they were listening to it at a particular time.
And your music's very healing. I'm a nurse, and I think she's a real powerful message. So.
Thank you.
The other thing that strikes you is the range of the people. I've seen Loreena after shows talk to people from the age of 16 to the age of 70, goths, rock and roll fans. I mean, her audience is so diverse.
Hello. So pleased to see you twice in 1 year. It's a miracle.
We'll be the Grateful Dead pretty soon.
A lot of people will bring their problems to her, and while she might not be able to do anything about it, she will listen, and they go away feeling better. I mean, I've actually had to drag her away or I've had to drag her back indoors if it's been raining. I said, look, you don't be standing outside in the pouring rain, come and stand inside and talk to them. Oh, well, I've got to talk to these guys. Yeah, well, you can talk to them, but talk in the dry, because she puts their well-being before her own.
Thank you again. Have a safe trip.
why do you go through all this trouble of touring and performing? And I think that it really goes back to that feast analogy, or that food analogy, or that sharing, that for me the whole process does not feel complete unless you've been able to share it with other people.
By purple mountains, round every bend, our roads lead to you. There is no journey's end. Here is my heart, I give it to you. Take me with you across this land. These are my dreams, so simple, so few. Dreams we hold in the palm of our hands. Deep in the winter, amidst falling snow, high in the air, the bells they all toll. Now all around me, I feel you still here. Such is the journey, a mystery to fear. Here is my heart, I give it to you. Take me with you across this land. These are my dreams, so simple, so few. Dreams we hold in the palm of our hands. The road now leads onward, I know not where. Deep in my heart, you will be there. Whenever a storm comes, whatever our fears, the journey goes on as your love of all years. Here is my heart, I give it to you. Take me with you across this land. These are my dreams, so simple, so few. Dreams we hold in the palm of our hands. by a lantern bright, I fled my house while all in quiet rest, shrouded by the night, by the secret stair I quickly fled. The veil concealed my eyes, while all within lay quiet as the day. Oh, night, thou was my guide. Oh, night, more loving than the rising sun. Oh, night, that joined the lover to the beloved one, transforming each of them into the other. Upon that misty night, in secrecy beyond such mortal sight, without a guide or light, and that which burns so deeply in my heart, the fire 'twas led me on, and shone more bright than all the midday sun, to where he waited still. It was a place where no one else could come. Oh, night, thou was my guide. Oh, night, more loving than the rising sun. Oh, night, that joined the lover to the beloved one, transforming